Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesey is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome, amazing, most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show.
Regularly.
I wish I could grow a mustache.
I can, but it grows in blonde on the sides.
Oh, dude, I thought that was your real mustache.
And then it grows in blonde on the sides and then dark in the middle. So it looks like I have this like weird Hitler stash.
So speaking of weird Hitler stash, that was Chris Begbie of the Atypical.
You forgot that you hit record.
Or did I?
Actually, did you guys...
Yes. Hi, everyone. Chris Begbie here. Pleasure to be on the show. Thanks for the invitation, Luke. Much appreciated. So I'm one of the hosts of the Atypical Hunter Podcast, and we do some content on YouTube here and there. I'm a new hunter. This has been my second season bow hunting. Absolutely love it. Kind of always something I wanted to do. And then last year moved across the street from a guy that was really into hunting as well, and kind of snowballed from there. And it's something I'm very passionate about now. And I am very much a greenhorn in the eyes of the hunting community, I would say. But I've been trying to learn as much as possible, and met Luke kind of through my experience doing my podcast and some social media stuff, and he's been a good help. And happy to be on today and share some things we've learned over the last season or couple seasons. But thanks for having us on.
And the other one, which you cannot see with his arms folded, staring intently at the screen, is Kyle Mork, also the other host of the Atypical Hunter Podcast. So Kyle, can you kind of introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, I'm Kyle Mork. I've been hunting for a while, just kind of dabbling in and out of it since I was in about 7th or 8th grade. Then 2015, I really started getting into bow hunting almost exclusively. At the same time that my wife kind of got my ass into fitness at the same time. So, but as far as like my experience and everything with hunting, when Chris moved across the street and we started this podcast thing, it was kind of an opportunity for me to actually do things the right way and start learning things, basically from scratch again. I mean, I'd been hunting for a long time, but not really ever doing anything the right way. So it was cool being with Chris and really just kind of learning from the start again.
Yeah, that's definitely. I like listening to your podcast because it's even a fresher or a more newbie approach than like what I've taken on my journey as well. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting to just watch you guys try and figure out some of the problems, especially coming from different states and trying to figure out each state's regulations and things like that.
Oh, don't get me started.
I've kind of just really, and sometimes it's even almost laughable, but at the same time, I realize that, there is that process involved there that, maybe if you didn't grow up reading them or something like that, there's some rules that you could definitely get caught up in. And I think you guys have definitely almost fallen into those pitfalls a few times.
Well, there's been, if we want to just get into some things like that, there's been a few times where I've said something on the podcast that I'm planning on doing, and someone's called me and been, "Hey, you don't want to do that. Like you can't do that here." I was like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah.
But yeah, that last year, one of the first things was just, we did our firearm season, and I was going to, bring buckshot, which you can't do in Illinois. But for those that don't know, I'm from New Jersey, and
he's teasing his jeans.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that?
No, that's just a running joke from Just Friends. They talk about he's from Jersey. He skis in his jeans.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jean skiers. But I mean, I never really grew up hunting. I was more of a fisherman. My dad was really into fishing, and then coming here and saying, all right, I just want to do this without really having anyone kind of show me the ropes was definitely tough. So public land is kind of few and far between in Northern Illinois, and there's different rules for national land and local land and state land and all sorts of different things. So it was a lot to navigate, which I think I have a relative handle on now, but definitely took a little while to get. I mean, the first whole season, I really did, like, I was second guessing myself every time I was going out someplace.
The days of access were the toughest, I think, for both of us. That was something you and I both had to learn from the get-go, was accessing public land, because I'd never hunted public land until last year. And it was what days you can go on where, when you can scout in preseason. You know, I'm fairly certain we may have been on land that we shouldn't have been on for scouting before some of the season started, but that was.
Oh, I was for sure my first season. I didn't even, I went into it ass backwards. I didn't realize there was a place to park where you're supposed to park and like sign in. I just saw public land. I parked where I thought this was a good place to access it. And then, you know, a month later, I'm reading no scouting in this area until, you know, these certain dates. So, I mean, I know now because I go there all the time, but yeah, there's a lot of red tape you have to kind of get through, and fine print you have to read to play by the rules. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I've never even realized or even seen, is the scouting, certain dates and stuff like that for scouting. I didn't know that actually existed.
Yeah. So in the Des Plaines Wildlife Propagation area, you can hunt there most days, except in the early season. You're not allowed to hunt there on Sundays or weekends or something like that. They're, like October, they limit the days, and then you're not allowed to scout there until the first week before the season. So
really,
I didn't know that going in. I just assumed it was public. You could just go there, you know. But I guess because they grow crops there, and they raise different animals like game birds and things, that they don't want you to disturb them until season time or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, I know now, but didn't at the time.
Because I mean, I've never seen that for most of the areas that I go to, but I've never hunted out there, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So lesson learned is check each area you go to before you plan on going there to, you know, learn the regs and each
definitely
spot.
Yeah. So Kyle, while we're on here, I'm just kind of wondering, how do I become a fitness model? Is that like a real thing? Or, I mean, I want to collab with people on social media.
The collab.
Those collabs were ridiculous.
Do you think they even know what collab
or
like the actual word is? Collaborate? Do you think they know how to spell it?
Those things were ridiculous. So I've kind of fallen into the Instagram thing. Basically just posting a lot of gym selfies is really what it comes down to, which is what Luke is referring to, when the collabs. Because what would happen is I'd post these things, and then I'd get these random ass, you know, we should collab things, which are really just like, we'll give you a discount on some piece of shit. I can swear on this, right? No?
Do what you want.
Okay. Sorry, I should have asked that beforehand. You know, some crappy like t-shirt company or watch company that just overcharge you. But yeah, no, you just get a solid Instagram account, buy a bunch of followers, use about 1 million hashtags, and you're in.
I think I actually started a hashtag. Maybe Chris can help me out on this, but I believe it was hashtag keep your shirt on, Kyle.
You did.
That is a good one.
And I have.
And then I counteracted that with a hashtag take that shirt off, Kyle.
And so, as you can tell, this podcast right now is kind of just a conversation and catching up with the boys from Atypical Hunter Podcast. It is the first podcast of 2021. But with that being said, this is kind of a lessons learned, as you've heard already. So I kind of want to get to Kyle first, because it seems like you put an awful lot of pressure on yourself this year.
Yeah.
to make something happen.
Yeah.
And after you did that, I'm just kind of curious, like what did you take away from everything?
So it's it's interesting, the mindset through the whole thing. And I know I obviously talking to Chris pretty much every day, hitting my wits end. I had been texting you as well. Really, this was the first year where I was hunting every day for during the prime season. I had the opportunity to be on parental leave basically during the rut in Kentucky, and I was hitting this area fairly hard, and I kept getting busted. Either getting winded, I was knocking things out when I was walking in, I was too loud, I was making mistake after mistake. And then I hit a rut where there were just days where I just wasn't seeing anything. Um, and and I don't know what, I can't say that there's like one thing that kind of clicked, but every time I got winded, I was a little bit more cognizant of watching the wind on on whatever app I was using at the time, and then getting into the area and testing the wind out and making sure that I was moving in a way that could that would be favorable to me. When I was doing that, I wasn't necessarily thinking about where could the deer be coming from once I'm all set up in the tree. Like I had like half of the equation figured out with the wind, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, wait, the deer are going to walk in from this different area. So I was screwing things up left and right with wind particularly. And it really just kept going. I think I had texted you one day on a super, super windy day. And I was like, listen, it's incredibly windy out here. I'm not seeing anything. I'm at my wit's end. What should I do? I gotta go back to the drawing board. And basically what you had said was, it's super windy. They're not going to hear you moving around. Get down and just look for scrapes, look for rubs, look for some type of sign that something's in the area, and then just start from there. So this was on one of the 3 properties that I have access to in Kentucky. I'm walking around, I see sign, then all of a sudden, boom, there's deer. Didn't necessarily spook them out, but it was easy for me to tell where the wind was, and I could see how they were moving with the wind. So I think it was a day or 2 later, I was out in the backyard of my in-laws just kind of shooting around, and I had kind of decided to take that day off. I was like, I just again, I'm still in that kind of reset mode. But what I did was I checked the wind on my app, and I'm like, that's a real favorable wind for where I want to go. And where I want to go is literally on the corner of a golf course on maybe a 1 acre wide by 7 acre long piece of property. So I'm like, I can only really go into one spot. Looking at that, I knew that the deer would either come from the golf course or from the cornfield on either side of that acre property. And there was a wind that was blowing that they would basically just come on an angle right to me if I was there. And I got up in that tree. Maybe an hour and a half later, it was big buck down right after that. And I was like, it finally all just kind of came together.
I like how you it was an awesome, I mean, it's awesome deer. Awesome. I'm glad it came together for you. And what was even crappier though was how you sent me like some hokey little photo of just a snippet of the deer, like you holding something and you couldn't see what the heck it was. And I'm like, all right, yeah, you got something, whatever. And then
please, you were just as bad with yours this year.
Yeah.
Build up.
Where did you learn that from? No, actually, so
I'm always doing that stuff to you guys. So
yeah, you do. You do. Like you keep. It's like we're getting 30% of the story. What's going on? But no, there was. I could only send certain things out before they got watermarked too. So there was a reason. Kind of a little bit of a reason for that too. So, but there were some people that I'm like, I want to send this picture to somebody. I'm sending it to Chris. I'm sending it to my dad. I'm like, I gotta send this to Lucas and a couple other people. So.
I like how it wasn't last year, it was the year before. I sent the one to Chris and he's like, oh man, when'd you get that buck? And I was like, I don't remember. He got all mad at me. He's like, well, you must be pretty stupid if you don't remember. And I go, look at its legs. And he's like, oh. And you could totally tell it got hit by a car after you looked at it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just stuff
always
like
sending me these weird things.
I got to jack with you, but no, that was definitely cool. I think my biggest takeaway from everything that I learned was probably I am the worst judge of a buck in the moment until the moment passes. And then I regathered my thoughts and I'm like, man, that was stupid. I should have shot that deer. But like, I don't know what it is lately. Like my heart isn't racing. Maybe it's just because you know what I mean? Like you get enough encounters or something to where it just really isn't just racing anymore. And I'm
I have
collected.
no idea what that's like yet, Luke. I have no idea what that's like.
So I'm collected and in the moment I'm like, his head's down. He kind of looks small. You know, I'm looking at him, and it happened again this year. And I believe I sent you guys that photo, and it was like,
yep.
Man, I screwed up on that one. And I've got video footage. I haven't even shown you guys of them yet, but you'll definitely make fun of me for passing them. And it was so stupid. And I chased that deer. I chased that deer for 4 or 5 more days, but I never had the right wind to get back up on him and set up where I needed to set up, where he was checking those scrapes. And I couldn't get close enough to him. And finally I was loading the canoe every day by myself. And I just got burned out. And I'm like, man, if I see another nice deer come by, I'm taking them. And I watched that buck that I took. I mean, I watched him come in and push does across the water. And, you know, I took him, and I don't regret it, but at the same time, I regret not taking that other buck.
So lesson learned is you would take one first time it comes by, or what? How are you gonna judge that next year?
I think, yeah. I definitely, if he looks decent, or I think he's decent, don't try and be judgy and picky, because that opportunity might not, you know, ever present itself again. I was confident. And I mean, I did see him. I even texted you guys and told him, you know, like, yeah, I saw him at 200 yards away or 100 yards away, but I never got close again. And I think I even saw that buck that morning. He was pushing my buck and stole a doe from him, the buck right. I took. But yeah, it's just one of those things that from now on, I don't think I should be as judgy.
So, were you able to kind of tell that because you were carrying the camera around this year? This is the first year you carried the camera around, right?
Yes, it is. And then I kind of ditched the camera after a while, because I was just like, you know what? I'm so focused on fiddling with the camera. I think that might have actually taken away from me getting an initial judgment on him too.
Yeah.
I was trying to get the GoPro on him, and then I had the actual video cam too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the GoPro, I had it turned on. I was fidgeting with that. And then as he came in, then he kind of got behind some brush, and there was still a window where I could have put a shot, but it kind of restricted my judgment of how big he was at that point. Like I could have judged him ahead of time.
Right.
And what's funny is I saw him like 80 or 100 yards out, and he went like south of me and hooked back around and came up my way. And when he went south of me at that 80 yards, I looked at him and I go, holy crap, that's a big buck. And maybe because I was jacking with the camera trying to get it on him when he was over there, and then when he hooked back around and came right by me, I don't know what happened, but I didn't think it was the same buck at first, and it was.
Really?
So the camera didn't add 20 pounds or anything like that.
No, it did not. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some advantages to carrying the camera around. I mean, you were able to kind of see like, oh man, I screwed up, but you were able to see like, okay, like that. Well, I definitely judged that wrong, and now you're like kind of reflecting back on it. You're like, I have proof that I judged that wrong. So now,
right. Oh yeah, when he got like 60 to 80 yards out from me, and I zoomed in on him, he was walking away, and I saw how wide he was.
Yeah.
And then he turned around and faced me because he was watching a couple does.
Yeah.
And he turned back around and was looking directly at me, and I've got the video footage of that, and I was like, oh, what did I do? It was just instant regret. So I think that and passing the buck I did the year before and getting all the crap from everybody, it's not even the grief that ended up guilting me, but I only ended up taking a doe that year and never even filled that buck tag because I passed on that buck, and that was the last opportunity I had. Yeah. So between that and then this year, it's like, what am I doing? Just because it's the first day of the hunt, and the worst part is I knew where to go. I knew where to set up, and I did. And my intuition was right. I was like, the wind is perfect. I'm going to set up here. This is going to be my access point. This is going to be my exit if the wind changes.
Right.
I had it figured out, and I could have ended it. But there was that, hopeless, like romantic in myself that I was just like, no, it's day one. What are you doing? So just don't ruin it. I think that's my biggest thing is, and it's kind of cliche, but you hear it all the time. It's don't pass up something on the first day that you wouldn't pass up on the last. And
Yep.
I mean, I did, and I screwed up on that. So that's definitely my lesson learned. 2021, that's not going to happen. What about you, Chris? What was your takeaway from this year?
Well, that was sort of my lesson last year. So last year I got skunked. Mostly by my own doing. In the beginning of the season last year, I passed on a few does that came by. And then even later season, there were some does, and for whatever reason, I just like wasn't ready to do that. I thought a buck might be behind it. I was like, I want to get a buck first and then I get a doe late season, something like that. And I just regretted it completely after that season. And I told myself that this year, anything that comes along that's, old enough, I'm just putting down right away, take that pressure off. And that's exactly what happened. I had a doe walk in front of me. I don't know, it was 1.5, 2.5-year-old doe. Came out on my first day of the hunting season, October 4th. Took a shot, missed the first shot, took second shot, and it died within like 80 yards or something like that. But I felt so much relief after that, knowing that I had already, fulfilled part of my goal. So, I mean, that was my first year. The rest of the season, I felt zero pressure, really. I had a couple encounters with those again later in the season that I just decided to pass on. I was using a lot more this time this year to sort of figure out more deer movement that I did last year. And kind of the same lesson is, take the pressure off you early. And then I felt like I really enjoyed the rest of the season more this year than last year, which was nice. And in doing so, I learned a lot more about buck movement in particular, because I was ready to just watch and not like put myself in situations where I was making kind of overreaching moves. I did that a lot last year, was putting myself in areas where I saw all this sign, there was rubs everywhere and bedding and all sorts of stuff. And then I wouldn't see deer, and I kept going there over and over and over again, which was stupid. And I was like, if I don't see something, the one or two, like after one or two sits here, move somewhere else.
That's the exact definition of insanity, right?
Yes.
I mean, doing the same action over and over and anticipating a different result.
So, I mean, I was like, they're here. I know there's sign here. There's fresh sign every time I'm here, and then it doesn't happen. So I ditched that. I ditched that this year, and did a more I did a less insane approach to my hunting this year, which was, moving on quicker than I did last year, and it helped. I still have yet to put a buck down. So that's my goal for this coming year. And another lesson that I learned is trail cameras can be great, but they can also kind of provide a fool's paradise. We had a lot of good pictures on a trail cam that we put out, and then I saw no deer in that location once the season came around. So I need to get better at off-season scouting and not rely on a camera that I put out in August.
I think that's
going to give me some good sign.
I think that's huge, though. I really do, because I've had it to where, and so I actually set up 2 cameras just recently, and one I was getting pictures, but it was just like hit or miss, and it was random. So then I set up 2 cameras, and one facing the opposite direction of that, and it turns out the deer were going on both sides of that tree. So it's just, I mean, those little things, the deer are still there, but you're relying on that camera to kind of tell you, oh yeah, they're not here today. They're not here. Well, no, they are there. They're just, you're not seeing them within the frame of that camera. Yeah. And that's, I mean, and I hardly ever use cameras, but I really wanted to see. And so with that being said, I've also learned that I can kill another buck, a 3rd buck in Illinois.
What?
I found a golden loophole. Yeah. So late season, if you have a leftover tag, that's a shotgun tag or even an archery tag, I believe. Maybe it has to be a shotgun tag. I'm not sure on the exact logistics of it, because I've got both. But you can go and you can, during late winter, which is right now, going on right now, it's late winter antlerless and CWD season, which allows you to take a third buck.
Really?
Yep.
So we got to kill 1 and 2 bucks first to get to that third buck, but hopefully 2021 that we use that loophole too.
But that's where
that would be a nice problem to run into is having to figure out how to kill my third buck this next season.
Well, this one's a lot better than I've been getting on camera. He's nocturnal, so I got to figure out or find him during the day. But I mean, everything I've got is anywhere from 8 at night till like 2:30 in the morning, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
But that's where I learned that he was actually there, is when I flipped that camera around to the other side of the tree and had the other one facing the other way, and he was never on the one. But sure enough, he was on the other one. So,
can I ask your hesitancy to use cameras? Because I've been sort of feeling that way. Like, it was exciting to get the deer on the camera, before the season started, but it didn't really help me too much, I didn't think, for one. And then another aspect is like, I don't know if I want to rely on that or not yet. Just personally as a hunter, I don't know. I have no problem against other people using cameras. I don't know. Like, I just don't know if I'm ready to do that or not yet.
So my whole thing is one, they're expensive and I don't like getting them stolen.
Yeah.
Especially my wife just bought me a cell camera, which is pretty cool. But also, if you want a Pope and Young deer, can't use the cell camera.
Yeah, can't use cell camera
so
anymore.
Something to be considered if you want to get your deer entered in the book, can't use one. But so my whole thing was, I've had them stolen, especially, I mean, we're talking public ground here. And on top of that, you're relying on one frame. Like I said, you're relying on one frame, or say you've got 2 or 3 of them. And I mean, I know some people, they'll put out like Josh Prophet will put out 80 something cameras, 83 cameras. I mean, it's insane the amount of cameras that guy uses. And if that helps him and that's his way he's going to do it, that's fine. But if I can learn the properties, I can figure out where the deer are based upon a little bit of sign and topography and everything else. And then all I have to worry about is the wind. And if I don't get on them that day, as long as the conditions are pretty much the same and it's still okay, they're going to be hitting this feed or something like that, I've learned you can get close enough. So one day you're 80 yards off and the wind's ideal the next day too. You're just going to get in there and move in closer or tighter. And I found that that's better than focusing on one area, because unless you're putting out 80 something cameras, which I don't even know, I don't have time to even go out and check them. You know what I mean? So
I mean, that's a crap ton of money too. Jeez.
Yeah, it is. But so, I mean, like with that happening like that, basically I don't want to have to go out and check them like that when I can try and figure it out on a map and go, okay, I know this is where they're going to be. Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy.
You're dropping scent every time you go in there too. I mean, you're disrupting things, and that's probably the biggest thing, when you talk about cameras, the public versus private land part too, like just you being in there or the pressure itself, like having experienced the ones that Chris got on the camera that we put out in that swamp area, we were like, oh, we got two nice bucks. Oh, we had 2-3 pictures of them.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yep.
And then, running cameras out in Kentucky where I had an area where I set it up, Luke, kind of like how you talked about with, one camera on one side, one camera on the other. And honest, from the same lesson learned that you had talked about, where it's like they're walking behind the camera, I would get 400 or 500 pictures. And I was like, okay, well, I've got an inventory of bucks coming through here. I would set up in that area sometimes, but there, I think I could rely on the cameras a little bit more because I knew I was the only person hunting that area at that point. So I think that's the amount of pressure. If you got a lot of pressure, your camera, the value of the pictures of your camera maybe go down a little bit. But if you're on private and the surrounding area is pretty unpressured, I think you have a little bit more value on the private side.
Yeah, I think so. That, like, adding to that too, like if you have a set stand location, like a lot of guys set up their stand, they're not mobile. Mm-hmm. They're kind of, hey, we're going to put up a ladder stand here. It's on whatever trail or, whatever. I think that would be beneficial because that is your shot window, mm-hmm. So now when that deer's coming through. I mean, I've heard stories of, guys have cameras and they know that deer's coming through at 8:35, so they slip in there at like 7:45 or even 8 o'clock, and that deer's dead by 8:35. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it just all kind of depends. But yeah, I'm not really, really keen on them.
Yeah, I may use one. I may get another one or two and just see if some patterns that I'm predicting are repeating, sort of thing. I'm definitely not going to blanket the area with 80 trail cameras.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
$600-700 worth of cameras.
With that being said, are you going to take me up on my offer next time I invite you to come with me?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Mostly just to see, what you're doing. Like, everything I'm learning has been mostly through listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos and Kyle's experience, basically. And just to have another like actual hands-on tutor kind of helping me out, I think would be really, really great. But yeah, I mean, anytime for sure. I know I wanted to get my own buck in like my own public land area that I go to, and that's still a big goal of mine. But yeah, I'm not going to be as picky about it. But that's definitely a goal. I mean, the area I hunt, I can't imagine a more pressured area than the areas that I hunt in. And I think if I can be successful there, that's a real testament to the growth that I've achieved at that point. So I want to get there, but yeah, anytime you want to help me out and some.
I just couldn't believe when he turned me down. I was like, I'm telling you right now, come with me tomorrow, because I think it was like Kyle had plans to go out. You guys were going to go out together, and then something happened. I don't know if it was baby related.
There's always something that happens on my end.
Whatever it was, but I was like, hey man, if you're going out, I'll take you. Come on, come with me. We'll go out. And you're like,
that was also right after I saw like the biggest buck that I've seen in person.
Oh,
like that
you
was
didn't
like,
tell me that.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
It was like the biggest buck I saw in my short hunting career. I was like, I just want to get this buck. I tried like 6 times to get that buck, coming in from different areas, setting up in different locations, finding its bedding, and I only saw it that one time, which was a shame. But that was in the back of my mind. I was like, I can get this buck. I'll get this one. I won't have to get Luke's.
And then
yeah, next year.
Is that where you ended up, where the other hunter was like, you ended up snapshotting a picture and like you could see the guy's feet in the stand
waving at each other?
Yep. And then he got a deer that day.
Oh,
that guy.
What happened there? Tell me that story.
What day was that? I forget what day that was. It was December. Might have been Christmas Eve or something like that. But it was muzzleloader archery, and I pulled up to the parking lot, and no lie, 15, 16 cars in the parking lot. Ugh. Everyone walking in at the same time. I thought I was there early enough. It was like 11:30. My wife was super pissed at me that day because I left like half an hour earlier than I was supposed to, and I was, getting grief there. I trekked in and got set up. Wind was fine. And then an hour and a half later, some other guy comes trucking in, set up around the corner from me. And, deer comes walking down the path. I mean, I don't know if the deer would have come close enough to me to shoot with the bow, but he took it out. I could see a deer. I just couldn't see if it was a buck or a doe. But that was not a fun day. I was like, this is a rough one. I need to go somewhere else next time.
I've had it before. I mean, it was like opening day, not last year, but the year before, I guess technically now that it's 2021, but opening day, I'm sitting there and it's like just getting light out. I hear some sign or some movement, kind of going on in the background. I'm like, sweet, I'm on this buck's bed. And then nothing. I don't hear anything. Then it's like, I don't know, 9:00 now, 9:30. And all of a sudden I see this flash of like white. I look over, and at first I thought it was like a deer's tail, and I'm like, huh? But I was like, it's way too noisy. So then I look, and it's this dude carrying a bright white bow with like neon pink arrows and a blaze orange freaking bino harness. And just like, I mean, he's wearing like a winter snowsuit that's like brightly colored, and he's walking through with his bow. And I'm like, and that was the only dude I ever actually said something to. I was like, hey, how's it going? Just from up in the tree, because it was like the amount of noise he was making, it didn't matter. I actually thought about getting down, and I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh, sorry. and just kept.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
So I waited like 2 more hours, and then just kind of moseyed on out and got down, and then went and bought a turkey tag because I saw a bunch of turkeys that day. Though
There you go.
I think that might have been the initial noise I heard.
Yeah.
So, but then then you fast forward to like this past opener, and I'm set up on a tree, and it was very close to where I took that doe 2 seasons ago, and I'm set up on the tree, and it just so happens I look down after I'm set up, and the tree right underneath me, somehow I didn't see it because I got spun around on the tree as I got up in it. Had one of them little night eyes in it, and I'm set up, ready to go. My bow's hanging, everything. And then I see a light just bouncing through the woods.
Coming right to you.
Coming right to me. And I'm like, huh? What the heck's going on? And here that night eye lights up when his headlamp hits it. And I'm like, geez. But there was nothing in the tree. And he keeps walking, and he's like, looks up at me, and he's like, I must be off a little bit or something. And I'm thinking, no, this is probably your markings.
You're right on your line here, pal.
Yeah, you're right where you're supposed to be. Just bad timing.
Bad timing. So he went further or whatever, and that's actually that doe that I shot.
Don't go further. That's a lesson I learned this year too. Is don't go further.
Nope.
Yeah, put on that bad shot, but he shot at that same doe, and she was super spooked when she came in. And that's my other lesson learned is I'm never going to try and stop a deer again, especially if it looks on edge. Like if it's coming in fast, I mean, you know what I mean? Like a deer, they might take 20 minutes to go 30 yards. Yeah. And if it's not doing that and it's not its normal pattern and it's coming in real fast and hot, I'm not going to try and stop it to get a shot off anymore because I ended up, I don't know if she jumped it or whatever she did, lurched forward a little bit when she heard that arrow coming, but it ended up putting a bad shot, and it screwed up my whole mindset for the opener of the season. And it caused me to question and second guess myself when I shot that buck too, the first buck that I took.
Yeah.
It just, so that, I think that's definitely my other takeaway is just never stop a deer, especially if they're on edge.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Let it happen.
That's good advice. Yeah. We all have fallen victim to making bad shots on our first shot over the last 2 seasons. I mean, you and I, Kyle, both did that this year. We missed our first shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, mine, when my doe came out, I ranged it. I had time to range it, and then it kept moving what I thought was like 10 yards further, but it probably was 5 yards further. And then I shot clear over it. And luckily it had moved back to where I ended up ranging it initially and was able to make a good shot the second time. But I mean, you had a pretty similar thing happen to you.
Yeah.
So the lesson I learned for sure was be ready to take a second shot pretty fast.
Yeah. Practice the second shot. I mean, don't just be ready, like practice that second shot.
Which we had both done, which was fortunate.
Well, because we both learned
that
from
was huge.
My calamity last year with that.
Yeah.
No, I think that was one thing that I took away from you guys too, after talking to Chris initially about all that, was definitely start practicing that second follow-up shot. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of times, if you think you put a bad shot on him or something, but the deer, it gives you that instant where it stops or just does something for a second to where you can put that other one on. I think that's huge.
I mean, even if you make a good shot, why wouldn't you just try to take a second one anyway, just to make sure,
Right.
So yeah, that was big. Another thing I learned is I got a new bow this year, and bows made, post 2017 are much better than bows made in 1988.
I can see that.
I'd recommend using a newer bow over an older bow any day.
Yeah.
That thing had been taken apart and put back together without a bow press so many times. Every time he pulled back on it, I was like, yeah.
It's just a testament to my superhuman strength, being able to put limbs back on a bow without a press.
I still have no idea how you did that.
Not even going to ask.
Colonel Sanders knows over here.
Yeah, I got the text at work. He's like, yeah, I was messing with the string. It came off, so I took the limbs off and put the string back on. Now I got the limbs back on. And this is after we've been buddies for only a couple of weeks. I was like, how the hell did you do that?
I didn't know that wasn't a normal thing to do.
Did you like physically push it down on the ground and like, did you step on it at any point? What did you do?
I put it on my lap and just did it on my lap.
Good. That's good.
I mean, granted, it's not like a super, high poundage bow. I think it was 63 pounds or something like that. My dad's old bow that I was using.
And it did have some longer limbs. I'll give it that.
Long limbs and the cams are
it wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't easy, but I managed to get kind of the screw in, threaded a little bit, so it gave it enough tension, and then was able to, tighten it down enough to get them in there properly. But it worked. I mean,
that's good.
It worked. That's for sure.
All righty. Yeah. So it was good talking to you guys, having you on, learning some lessons. You guys want to tell everybody where they can find you guys, listen to you, find out more of all the fun things that you guys do and make me laugh. And that's why I listen. Love having you on.
Sure. Well, you can listen to our podcast. It's certainly not as regular as Luke's is. It's kind of, we have one-off episodes discussing things that we've been up to or, things we have going on in this season. But we're on, anywhere you have podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple. It's the Atypical Hunter Podcast. We are at Atypical Hunter on Instagram. And we have a YouTube page, which is the same thing, just Atypical Hunter. Mm-hmm. Kyle is more in charge of the YouTube content with his fitness model physique that he has. He's good in front of the camera. But we try to do some reviews on things that we find useful and things like that. But yeah, thanks for having us on. Did I miss anything, Kyle?
No, I think you nailed all of it, man.
Kind of like all those Insta huntresses nailing your DMs all the time. There.
Oh yeah. I can't keep them away. It's insane. My wife's the one who manages it now. I got a lot of explaining to do most of the time. I just
understand. It's been good.
It's always entertaining.
Yep.
But thanks again, Lucas. It was a lot of fun.
Alrighty. Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for coming on.
Till next time.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.